All right, today we're diving into a really fascinating thought experiment. What if we could actually build a communication bridge to other worlds? We're going to break down a pretty detailed blueprint for how we could do it right, looking at the huge opportunities and, of course, the hidden dangers. So let's get into it. I mean, just think about it for a second. Having direct access to new knowledge, completely different ways of seeing the universe, maybe even guidance from beings with a much broader perspective. It sounds like the single greatest technological leap in human history, right? Well, the framework we're looking at today argues that the real challenge, it isn't technical at all.
Yep, you heard that right. The hardest part wouldn't be building the thing, it would be surviving its impact on our societies and, frankly, on ourselves. The potential for disruption, for control, and for a new kind of dependency is it's immense. So, before we even think about laying the first digital brick, this whole framework suggests we need to solve two really fundamental problems. And these show up as two major threats we'd have to deal with. First, the threat to power. And second, the much more personal threat to self.
Okay, first up, let's tackle the big societal threat. How would a device that offers, direct access to some kind of higher truth survive in a world that's built on carefully managed stories and narratives? This thought experiment argues it would be seen as a massive, existential threat to the status quo. So here's why it's such a threat, broken down into three parts. First, it completely bypasses the traditional gatekeepers. We're talking governments, religious institutions, you name it. Their authority just gets displaced, instantly. Then, it has the potential to just shatter our shared reality, destabilizing everything from our laws to our economy. And finally, it's the ultimate unknown, right? It's an uncontrollable variable, and if there's one thing power structures can't stand, is something they can't control.
And this quote, wow, it just nails the scale of the issue. We're not talking about some small disruption here. The blueprint compares its potential impact to the Oracle of Delphi, an institution that literally shaped empires for centuries. This is a total paradigm-level threat we're talking about.
So put yourself in their shoes. If you're a power structure that feels threatened, how do you fight back against something like this? Well, this blueprint outlines a pretty predictable three-pronged line of attack. First, you go for the most direct approach. You just destroy it. This could be a physical attack, blowing up the servers, or a really sophisticated cyber attack targeting the key people and the digital infrastructure. It's simple, it's brutish, and it's often effective. Okay, so what if you can't destroy it? Then you move to attack number two. You go after its reputation. You bring in highly respected scientists, famous academics, and you have them publicly label the bridge as pseudoscience, a mass delusion, maybe even an elaborate fraud. You basically use the authority of the old world to invalidate the new one. And then there's the third tactic, which is maybe the most dangerous of all. If you can't destroy it, and you can't discredit it, well, you join it. You infiltrate the project, you twist its purpose from the inside, and you repurpose it to serve your own agenda, using its incredible power to spread fear, misinformation, and ultimately, control. So how in the world do you build a bridge that can actually survive this kind of onslaught? Well, the proposal outlines a four-part defense system. It starts with decentralization, so there's no single server to attack, no one leader to corrupt. Then you practice radical transparency. All the data, all the code, it's all public, which makes it almost impossible to discredit with lies. Next, you build what's called cultural immunity, framing the whole thing as a tool for curiosity and service, not some weapon for power. And finally, you design it with community governance right from the start, which makes it incredibly resilient to being co-opted by any one group. But here's the twist. Even if we manage to protect the bridge from the outside world, there's a second, more sneaky threat, protecting ourselves from the bridge. Could this amazing tool for liberation actually accidentally become a new kind of enslavement? The framework has a great name for this risk, the spiritual crutch. And it draws a perfect parallel to how we use our smartphones. You have a question? You ask Google? Well, in this new world, you have a life problem? You just ask the bridge. And this could lead people to avoid the very challenges and hardships that are absolutely necessary for their own personal growth. And this slide just lays out the central conflict perfectly. On one side, you have the path of inner authority, growing through challenges to strengthen your own wisdom, your own sovereignty. And on the other side, you have the temptation to just outsource your decisions, to avoid anything hard, and to create a whole new dependency. Which path do you think most people would choose? So how do we avoid that trap? The design itself has to be the guide.
The goal shouldn't be to give quick answers, but to foster deeper discernment, and that means designing the bridge to offer perspectives instead of prescriptions, to offer ideas instead of orders. And maybe most importantly, to remind users that challenges aren't just obstacles to be avoided, they're the very things that help us grow.
So what does that actually look like in practice? Well, one of the most brilliant ideas is to build reflection prompts right into the interface. So before the bridge ever gives you an answer, it first asks you a question, forcing you to turn your attention inward first.
A second prompt would then encourage integration. See, it's not about just blindly following whatever advice you get. It's about looking at how this new perspective fits with your own wisdom, with your own journey. It puts you right back in the driver's seat. And finally, there's this really powerful question that hits the spiritual crutch problem head-on. It forces you, the user, to actually consider the value of the struggle itself, reframing that hardship as a gift, not some burden you need to get rid of.
So let's bring this all together now. To build this bridge the right way, we need a design that's tough enough to handle both external attacks and our own internal weaknesses. This table just summarizes the entire philosophy beautifully. To fight centralized control, you build decentralized networks. To fight lies and disinformation, you practice radical transparency. To prevent it from being misused, you establish community governance. And to fight our own tendency toward dependency, you design the whole thing for discernment. You see? Each threat has a specific structural solution baked right in.
And this quote really gets to the heart of it all. This isn't about restriction. It's not about gatekeeping. It's about empowerment. It's about creating a tool that actually strengthens human sovereignty instead of taking it away.
Which of course leaves us with one final, massive question. And it's not just about some hypothetical bridge anymore, but about the technology we're all holding in our hands right now. Are our tools truly empowering us, making us more sovereign, more discerning, more human? Or are they maybe slowly and quietly enslaving us? That's definitely something worth thinking about.